各位傳媒朋友早晨，多謝大家出席今朝11點鐘嘅抗疫記者會。今日出席嘅除咗有行政長官之外啦，亦都有創新及科技局局長。稍後啦，行政長官同埋局長咧會先有個發言，然後接受大家嘅提問。疫情關係啦，咁請各位記者朋友喺記者會入邊啦，都係保持距離，戴好口罩。我哋依家首先有請行政長官。
各位傳媒朋友，各位香港市民早晨。今日呢，我係聯同創新及科技局局長同大家介紹一下喺抗疫工作裏邊，我哋如何應用科技，特別係本地研發嘅科技。事實上，我喺舊年7月呢，嗰份抗疫嘅按月報告裏邊，就係正正以科技抗疫為題嘅嚇。咁但係自從3月9日主持呢啲新聞發佈會呢，我哋都冇重點介紹過有關於科技嘅應用，所以今日趁呢個機會呢，亦都同大家講下。不過喺介紹抗疫科技之前呢，都想再次呼籲，今日係4月9日，亦都係特區政府推行呢個連續3日每日市民快速抗原自我檢測嘅行動嘅第2日。咁本人都係已經做咗呢個快速抗原檢測㗎啦，相信 Alfred 都做咗㗎啦。咁喺呢度呼籲全港市民呢，就係繼續支持呢個行動嗱。我相信喺今日4點半嘅新聞發佈會呢，衛生防護中心就會同大家交代喺透過快速抗原檢測自己自我呈報嘅個案嘅數字。照我所知呢，個案數字係比前一天呢係要高嚇，但係亦都唔係一個指數式嘅上升，咁所以完全係喺政府能夠可以處理嘅範圍，無論係為佢哋提供喺家居支援或者係安排佢哋進入去隔離設施。今次或者引發我哋選擇一個科技抗疫為主題呢，就係因為早前我諗都係幾日前嘅啫，就公布咗2022年日內瓦國際發明展。每一年呢，近年每一年呢，特區喺呢個日內瓦國際發明展呢，都係屢獲獎項嘅。如果唔係有啲社交距離措施呢，我哋每年都會辦一個慶祝會呢，就係祝賀得獎嘅研發嘅機構啦，或者係個人。咁當然而家就難以喺短期內可以安排呢個祝捷會啦。咁但係早前喺2022年日內瓦國際發明展裏邊公布香港嘅得獎名單呢，有唔少都係同今次抗擊新冠疫情係有關，即係話特別係為咗配合抗疫咧嚟到研發嘅產品啊。今日都擺咗一啲喺度，稍後 Alfred 會同大家介紹啦。據我所知咧，至少有17個獎項咧係同抗疫直接有關係，包括其中4個咧係攞金獎嘅。咁攞金獎呢4個裏邊呢，亦都係包括一個大家好熟悉，我哋時常喺呢啲發佈會都講呢，就係新冠病毒污水嘅監測嘅裝置，即係佢哋發明咗一個新嘅裝置呢，嚟到更加方便可以喺香港嘅排污嘅系統裏邊呢，係抽取呢啲污水作新冠病毒嘅監測。而我哋每一日有唔少嘅工作呢，都係會以呢個污水監測裏邊嘅病毒量呢，係為一個科學基礎嘅。當然能夠有呢個成績呢，係絕非偶然。過去2年多，我哋能夠廣泛應用科技嚟到去抗擊疫情，背後相信都係有幾大因素啦，特別係特區政府對於創科嘅大力支持。特區政府對於創科嘅大力支持呢，反映喺以下幾方面啦。第一，當然係政策嘅推動。由本屆政府開始呢，有一個高層次嘅跨部門推動創科嘅督導委員會呢，係由行政長官親自主持嘅。亦都係反映喺我哋資源嘅投入，超過1300億元投放咗喺科技創新嘅發展啦。亦都好高興見到香港多間大學同埋科研機構咧係發揮咗佢哋嘅積極性。 唔少嘅初創企業亦都係因此嚟到去誕生，令到香港嘅科技生態呢係轉趨非常之蓬勃嘅。咁當然科技嘅發展同埋應用以至到商業化係需要有資金嘅。咁所以睇到香港交易所上市制度嘅改革啦，同埋唔少嘅投資基金呢，越嚟係越願意投資喺本地嘅科技嘅發展。亦都係由於上述咁多嘅工作呢，我哋好高興喺舊年國家頒布第14個5年規劃裏邊呢，就係第一次説明咗會支持香港特別行政區呢發展成為一個國際科技創新中心，特別係用好喺粵港澳大灣區裏邊嘅協同效應。我喺呢度先請創新及科技局局長同大家做一個更加詳細嘅介紹。Alfred。
多謝行政長官，各位傳媒朋友、各位市民早晨，好高興呢為大家介紹本地研發嘅防疫抗疫嘅科技。防疫抗疫呢係社會嘅頭等大事嚟嘅，科技呢可以喺唔同嘅範疇上面提升防疫抗疫嘅效率同埋準確度，為克服疫情呢作出貢獻。除咗已經係被廣泛使用有超過780萬下載率嘅安心出行，覆蓋600多萬市民嘅疫苗通行證同埋80幾萬人登記咗嘅香港健康碼之外呢，喺過去2年多嘅疫情期間，特區政府各個部門、本地大學、初創同埋研發機構呢，一直致力呢係使用唔同嘅科技方案去支援防疫抗疫工作嘅。喺近日全球發明界盛事之一2022年日內瓦國際發明展之中呢，香港代表囊括咗204個獎項，係創歷年新高嘅。當中呢，亦都有部分獲獎項目呢，正如剛才行政長官所講呢，係同抗疫相關，包括咗贏得金獎嘅港大新冠病毒污水監測項目。呢個全球首創嘅科研成果呢，透過快速監測污水嘅病毒量，有效咁揭示唔同地區嘅新冠病毒嘅傳播情況。呢個科技呢，已經喺全港範圍呢廣泛咁應用，至今呢，已經係採集咗超過1萬個嘅樣本係作分析㗎啦。第5波疫情至今呢，配合污水監測結果而進行嘅跟進檢測，亦都為香港呢係揾到超過26000個初步陽性個案嘅。除咗污水監測之外，機電工程署聯同醫院管理局同埋創科業界研發嘅同心抗疫高速濾器呢，亦都喺今年嘅日內瓦國際發明展之中呢係獲得銀獎。呢個科技呢，可以快速高效咁呢將普通嘅病房呢改裝成為隔離病房。超過400部呢啲高效嘅濾器呢，已經應用咗喺16間醫院同埋社區治療設施。呢個高效濾器今日呢，亦都喺會場之中呢係作出展示嘅。我哋嘅研發機構呢，亦都係我哋防疫抗疫路上嘅堅實伙伴。物流及供應鏈多元技術研發中心 LSCM 呢，除咗喺疫情開始期間以一個極短嘅時間，同我哋嘅資訊科技總監辦公室同埋科技大學係研發咗居安抗疫電子手環同埋監測系統。佢哋亦都係研發咗一系列嘅疫苗檢測樣本嘅實時追蹤同埋庫存管理系統嘅，更加係以科技確保運送過程呢係高效安全。另外，我哋嘅納米及先進材料研發院 NAMI 呢，亦都研發咗一種突破性嘅納米纖維技術，可以應用喺口罩，能夠殺死新冠病毒，大大提升口罩嘅保護效能。早幾日呢，我亦都曾經參觀生產力局轄下嘅汽車科技研發中心，聯同本地業界研發嘅零排放電動健康車。呢兩個健康車呢，係走訪各個區，鼓勵同埋便利呢更加多嘅市民呢及早接種疫苗嘅。另外呢，為咗應對2019冠狀病毒嘅疫情，創新科技署呢喺2020年推出咗公營機構試用計劃嘅特別徵集，以支持呢防控疫情嘅產品開發同埋科技應用。計劃之下呢，其中一個大家都應該唔會陌生嘅項目呢，就係香港科技大學研發喺公共巴士啦、安老院舍啦、升降機等等使用嘅殺菌塗層技術。近日呢，相關嘅技術呢已經推出咗新一代多層次嘅殺菌塗層，可以持續5年呢有效咁滅殺多種細菌，以及消滅呢99.9%嘅傳染性病毒，包括咗 Omicron 變種病毒株。我手上呢個就係喺科技大學攞出嚟一啲嘅樣板啊，佢呢就塗放咗剛才所講嘅塗層呢，塗放咗呢個塗層之後呢， 係可以5年之內呢，係唔需要再噴任何嘅殺菌嘅一啲嘅噴劑，亦都可以咧保持到係殺到剛才所講嘅99%嘅即係 Omicron 病毒嘅。除此之外呢，我亦都想介紹咧喺同會場展示嘅戶外消毒機械人守護。呢個機械人呢，係由香港自主研發嘅5G 室內消毒機械人，亦都係獲得公營機構試用計劃嘅資助嘅。佢運用5G 同埋人工智能技術，配備360度全景相機鏡頭，以人工智能咧識別咗物體之後咧，再以噴灑消毒劑嘅形式咧進行自動消毒。目前守護呢個智能機械人咧已經喺社區嘅隔離設施啦、唔同嘅政府場地，包括咗海濱長廊使用嘅，係有助加強公共衛生，大大咁減低咧傳播疫情嘅風險嘅。另外咧，大家喺唔少地方咧都可能會見過由生產力局研發喺電梯使用嘅 Low Touch 無觸按鈕項目咧，係喺去年嘅日內瓦國際發明展咧係取得最高級別嘅評審團嘉許金獎，證明香港嘅科技發展咧一直獲得國際認可。Low Touch 無觸按鈕咧現時已經喺超過680部嘅電梯咧完成或者準備安裝啦，當中包括多個屋苑啦、政府場地啦、香港國際機場等等嘅地點嘅電梯。公營機構試用計劃咧特別徵集，共有63個項目咧係獲得批准嘅，總資助額超過1億200萬元。創新科技署呢亦都整合咗由我哋多個創新伙伴機構推薦嘅300多個創科業界嘅防疫抗疫產品同埋服務，鼓勵各個政府部門呢以科技抗疫。喺疫情初期，一眾業界朋友合力呢喺非常之短嘅時間之內呢，亦都開發咗互動地圖儀表板，為公眾提供有關疫情嘅最新資訊。至今呢，呢個平台呢已經錄得超過7000萬次嘅瀏覽。另外一眾創科義工呢，亦都喺早前呢推出咗線上嘅抗疫資訊平台疫安通，整合各項最新嘅防疫抗疫資訊，方便市民呢一站式咁便覽嘅。作為創新及科技局局長，我好高興呢啱啱係有機會為大家介紹香港嘅防疫抗疫嘅科技嘅例子。呢啲嘅例子呢，其實只係眾多防疫抗疫科技嘅一小部分。大家都可能留意到啦，呢啲科技嘅研發過程都係有得到政府嘅支持嘅，包括咗直接嘅資助，或者公營科研機構嘅參與，就或者係得到政府咧提供場地或者係設施咧作為試驗嘅場景嘅。事實上，香港特區政府咧喺過去多年為香港嘅創科發展咧係作出咗大力嘅支撐。正如剛才行政長官所講，單係今屆政府咧已經投放咗超過1300億港元咧支持香港嘅科技創新嘅發展。由以上我提出嘅例子呢，大家都會睇到香港嘅科研成果呢已經係佔據規模成效，表現呢亦係得到國際嘅認同，同時呢亦都已經可以為香港嘅防疫抗疫工作呢作出大嘅貢獻。我深信，只要屬社會各界呢齊心同行，堅持到底，我哋必定可以克服挑戰，穩住疫情，盡快走出逆境嘅。多謝大家，多謝行政長官。
好，依家係提問時間，想發問嘅記者朋友啦，請先舉手，嗌到你嘅時候啦，請講出你代表嘅傳媒機構名稱，然後用我哋俾你個咪咧去發問嘅。前面藍色衫呢位記者。
Hello, two questions from the South China Morning Post. The first question is concerning the voluntary RAT test. We'd like to ask the government about the statistics. How many infection cases yesterday does the government believe originate from the voluntary RAT test yesterday? And also, we are also aware of some cases of people haven't done the test yet, especially some elderly and those living in the subdivided flats. So what are the remedies for the government to help these people to do the test? We are also aware of cases of some people living in hotels as serviced apartments do not get the service bags to do the voluntary RAT test. So what are the ranges for the government to help provide these people with RAT test kits? And the second question is about vaccination rate. As we are aware that the vaccination rate for children remains low. So what are the measures will the government take to boost this vaccination rate? And how will the government encourage parents who are still hesitant to let their children be vaccinated get the vaccines? Thank you.
Thank you for the two questions. We have started a 3-day daily RAT, that's a rapid antigen test, yesterday. And I have made repeated appeals that every member of Hong Kong community should participate in taking the RAT for the very good objectives of helping the government to have a better picture. It's like a snapshot of the overall infection situation in Hong Kong, which I'm sure will be beneficial to our formulating the next stage of anti-COVID-19 policies. The second objective is a very tangible one because particularly for the Omicron variant, a very large percentage of the infected persons do not have symptoms. So they may not know that they have been infected. So if they don't know that they have been infected and they went around the community or have very close contacts with the family members, this would sort of help the virus to spread. So we have made this a very strong urge that for either one of the objectives, people of Hong Kong should take an active part in the RAT exercise. In order to make sure that people will easily and readily participate, the government has done a lot of things to make sure that everyone will have a good supply of the RAT kits. So we spent a week to pack all these 3.5 million anti-epidemic service bags. We spent a few days to visit the households in order to distribute the bags. According to my latest data, we have already distributed 3.1 million bags to 2.7 million households in Hong Kong. But we all know that sometimes the people will not be at home and they may miss our distributing team. So we set up throughout the territory 89 supplies stations in order to enable the households, individuals, to collect their service bag, and also for those who just want to walk in and collect more RAT kits. This 89 stations started to operate on the 7th of April, and according to my data, we have already distributed an additional 92,000 service bags and an additional 270,000 RAT kits. So these are all the work that we have done in order to encourage people to take part. But at the end of the day, this is voluntary. So we cannot guarantee how many will participate. Actually, by now, you should know that even if it is mandatory, just like the restriction testing declaration that we are still doing every day in individual buildings, there are still non-compliance cases ranging from 1% to 3%. So this is the Hong Kong society. People treasure a lot their freedom to do one thing or to do another thing. But the government will never give up. We will continue to encourage, to persuade, and make it easy for people to participate. That's why at the very beginning, we already said that for those who are unable to read the instructions in English, we have APIs, 1-minute videos. We show at the various housing estates how to do this RAT test. So these are the work that we have been doing. And for people who live in hotels or service apartments, or they are more than welcome to walk in any of the 89 stations to collect either a service bag or additional RAT kits to enable them to participate. Now, you asked about statistics. I do not have the exact figures in hand, except that I was told that by midnight yesterday, the number of self-declared positive cases based on the Center for Health Protection self-declaration online system was a figure higher than the preceding day. Because if you look at the figures over the last 2 weeks, whether it is the PCR test positive or RAT test positive, the two figures are coming down. So in the last few days or so, the two sources of positive cases put together would give a figure about 2,000 to 3,000 every day. So if we have not done this or encourage people to do this daily RAT test, one would expect the figures to continue to trend down, whether it is for the PCR or the RAT. But I'm now telling you that for this afternoon's announcement, as far as the RAT positive cases are concerned, it will be a figure higher than the preceding day. So that sort of illustrates that the daily RAT exercise does have its impact in identifying infected cases whom have not been identified because these people without symptoms, they will not go forward to do a PCR or a RAT test. But since you asked about statistics, I may as well elaborate on a figure that appeared in many of the newspapers' headlines this morning, that the figure of 30,000 that I mentioned yesterday. Now, this is a projection based on a study done by the Hong Kong University School of Public Health, what they call a point prevalence surveillance study. In other words, through a sample of 10,000 Hong Kong people and requiring them periodically to do the RAT test and report the result, that is the positive result, so that they can put together and give us a point prevalence. In Chinese, I think is 時點患病率. At that point in time, what is the infection rate in Hong Kong? So people who were tested positive in this exercise would be people who have been infected and self-declared to the Center for Health Protection, but they have not recovered. So if you put them through a RAT test, if their CT value is still quite low, that is the viral load is still quite high, they will give them the 2 lines. So they are still a positive case. The other part will be those, as I mentioned, they are asymptomatic. But having taken this RAT test, they discovered that they were positive. Now, the 30,000 figure was projected or estimated from the point prevalence percentage on the 6th of April, which was 0.56. So by applying this 0.56 percentage to the overall population of Hong Kong, that is 7.4 million people, and then assuming that about 1/4 of those will be infected, not yet recovered, the 3/4 will be freshly infected, then derive the figure about 30,000. You could do your own calculation. But I'm telling you that the latest point prevalence percentage on the Hong Kong U School of Public Health website, that is on the 7th of April, that percentage has dramatically fallen to 0.26, I think. Is 0.26. So immediately, the projected figure of 30,000 yesterday would become 14,000 today. Okay? I hope you follow my calculations. And the 14,000, if we take the 1/4 and the 3/4, will give you what? About less than 10,000 infected but not yet declared. And there is also one thing that I discovered yesterday, that this 3/4 and 1/4 may not be very accurate, because in Hong Kong, every day we still have 2,000 to 3,000 newly infected and confirmed cases. So assuming that these people will take at least maybe 4 or 5 days to recover, then I would imagine at any point in time, if you take a snapshot of the 7.4 million population, there will be 6,000, 7,000 people who were infected but not yet recovered. And putting the 6,000, 7,000 to the 14,000 I mentioned, it's not 1/4, it's almost half. So taking all these factors into consideration, one would not expect the daily RAT test to review a very high number of newly confirmed cases. So I want to give you this background because later this afternoon, you might receive a figure which was not very high, but actually we should be very happy with a figure which is not very high as a result of a daily RAT test, which means that the government will have plenty of capacity to take care of these newly infected cases, either in transporting them to the CIF, the Community Isolation Facility, or through ITB to distribute the service bags to them and arrange online medical consultation and so on. About your second question on vaccination, we are actually disappointed that it has reached a sort of level which is moving upwards very, very slowly, particularly amongst the children. I think population aged 3 to 11 with the first dose, as at 8 p.m. yesterday, was 62%. So a week ago, it was already 60. So this slow progress in children taking the vaccine is very worrying because the schools are about to resume face-to-face learning after the Easter holiday. I think yesterday, together with the Secretary for Civil Service and the Secretary for Food and Health, we have already elaborated on the many support measures that we have rolled out in order to promote and encourage vaccination. Particularly for children, we have special centers for children to take the jab. If you have visited one, just as I have done, which is in the Gleneagles Hospital, they have made the environment so pleasant. There's a lot of cartoons here and there so that children need not worry about taking the jab. But at the end of the day, this is for the parents. So again, I appeal to parents who have young children that they should arrange for their vaccination as early as possible. My experts, particularly Professor Lau Yulong and Professor Ivan Hong, because these two are clinicians. One is internal medicine, the other is pediatrics. So they looked after cases of infection, especially Professor Lau looks after children. So we have to trust him that although some said that the Omicron variant is mild, it could hit the child very, very seriously without vaccination. So I hope that we will all encourage and promote and urge the parents to get their kids vaccinated as early as possible. Thank you.
好，下一位記者提問。我左邊後排嗰位藍色口罩嘅女記者，呢位，唔該。
你好，我係 TVB 嘅。想啱啱特首就透露咗話個陽性嘅情報數字係比琴日高啦。咁見到可能個疫情有機會上升翻嘅時候，個社交距離措施同埋復課係咪都會繼續翻呢？咁政府其實都有冇一個指標，就話升幾多先至唔放寬，又或者係升幾多日先至唔會階段式嘅放寬呢？咁亦都見到其實一日升咁多嘅時候，係咪即係證明咗都好多人做呢一個快測呢？咁亦都有人因為咁樣而呈報咗，係咪都揾到一定嘅隱形患者啊？唔該。
首先呢，就具體嘅數字呢，衛生防護中心喺度整理緊嚇。我頭先只係預先話俾大家聽呢，就呢個4月8號嗰日。鼓勵全港市民去做呢個快速抗原檢測呢，係有成效嘅。因為如果唔做呢，一般嘅發展呢，佢應該係無論係核酸檢測或者係快速抗原檢測而呈陽性嘅個案會持續下降。呢個趨勢我哋睇咗2個禮拜都係持續下降。雖然下降得唔係好快，而家都仲有2000多個案就係持續下降。咁但係今日下晝大家會睇到呢，我相信核酸檢測呈陽性係會繼續持續下降，但係快速抗原檢測呈陽性嘅數字係會上升但係上升嘅幅度並不如一般預計話突然間出現1-2萬個，所以早前大家就問我，喂，如果出現咁多，你搞唔搞得掂㗎？你有冇足夠嘅設施啊，或者係能力咧嚟到應對？咁所以我獲 知咧佢唔係咁嘅情況，因為如果係咁嘅情況，琴晚已經響晒燈㗎啦，即係咁多個案點樣做啊，特首嚇，咁係冇呢個即係話係好喺我哋能力以內咧能夠處理到嘅額外情報嘅陽性嘅個案嗱。如果只係呢一種嘅幅度，加上咁大型嘅快速抗原測試，大家一齊做都係咁樣咧，其實係一個非常之好嘅消息嚇。即係話咧喺社區裏邊咧就唔係多得咁緊要呢啲隱性嘅傳播鏈。咁呢個同我哋其他嘅監測指標都吻合嘅。而家無論係污水監測，或者係做圍封強檢嘅時候，喺一座大廈裏邊揾到嘅陽性個案，或者係市民自己願檢盡檢、需檢盡檢去嗰啲社區嘅檢測中心，全部都係呈下降嚇，大概個百分比係得返1%度啊嚇。咁呢個真係一個好嘅消息，所以大家唔好見到嗰個4月8號做快速檢測唔係做到好多陽性個案就失望，大家應該係開心嚇，我都係。開心嚇，咁所以如果係繼續呢3日都係咁樣嘅軌跡呢，即係佢會升，但係唔係好大嘅升幅呢。咁我哋更加有信心呢，喺復活節假期之後呢，就可以按住我3月21日公佈嘅工作去推展，因為當時就係話呢，只要個疫情唔會反彈，亦都繼續隨一個下降嘅趨勢呢，咁我哋就會喺社交距離措施嗰邊呢，就係分3個階段3個月呢，就絕大部分嘅措施都會放寬啦。另外學校亦都可以喺復活節假期之後呢，係逐步俾學生呢係返到去學校呢係面授課堂。我覺得處理呢個疫情呢，用呢一種嘅科學嘅方法係好過去用一個數字啊！即係你話要跌到幾多咁啊，又要做翻轉頭，因為有好多因素嘅嚇。我哋又要考慮社會嘅接受嘅程度啦，譬如復課又要考慮對小朋友，如果再唔復課嗰個傷害啦，咁所以永遠都係一個不斷咁喺度平衡嘅工作。不過有一個數字咧，我都想提出咧，就係我已經做咗呢個每日嘅發佈會咧，就係足足1個月啦。咁咧就如果我哋嘅數字下降到去每日3位數字咧，我打算就係結束呢個每天嘅新聞發佈會。我仍然好樂意見大家去談各方面嘅問題，但係恐怕大家都好悶啊，亦都唔係好多嘢問。關於抗疫咁，所以我希望早啲喺呢個場合消失啦。即係話香港嘅疫情咧已經係繼續受到控制，咁啊每日嘅公佈嘅數字咧已經係跌穿咗係1000，係一個3位嘅數字。多謝。
好，跟住下一位記者提問。我嘅右手邊前邊藍色衫嗰位記者。
兩位你好，香港01㗎，想問下有關呢落馬洲河套區應急醫院嘅問題。咁有傳媒呢就指出有醫管局成員前往醫院嘅時候呢係被拒絕，同埋要求佢出示綠色健康碼啦。想問下事件係咪屬實呢？政府有冇了解過發生咗咩事呢？另外呢都想跟進翻而家疫情緩和啦，想問下政府仲會唔會用河套區嘅應急醫院呢？另外，即係都見到確診病人減少啦，想了解翻政府咧係會點樣處理而家嘅隔離設施，包括係位於唔同地方嘅方艙醫院啦，同埋檢疫中心嘅。即係政府會唔會即係考慮縮減翻個規模啊？定係會將呢啲隔離措施就設施放翻喺度，好似空置咗咁樣呢？唔該。
首先呢，就必須有藉呢個機會呢，係非常感謝中央人民政府廣東省政府、深圳市政府咧，為我哋今次第5波疫情提供咗大量嘅支援嚇，就包括你提呢個喺落馬洲河套區嘅應急醫院嚇，咁但係顧名思義啦，佢係一個應急嘅醫院嚇，咁就係當我哋自己嘅醫院管理局嘅醫院嘅設施咧冇辦法可以應付而家嘅疫情嘅時候咧，就要啟動呢個應急醫院。而早前同中央講咧，由於我哋嗰個人手已經好緊張，咁所以整個嘅應急醫院咧，由佢嘅建造，即係個建築過程啦，裏邊嘅儀器嘅配置啦， 到第日嘅營運呢，都係希望能夠係內地支援嘅，即係話呢，同舊年交付俾我哋喺大嶼山嘅臨時醫院，即係而家叫做北大嶼山醫院香港感染中心係唔同嘅。當時係交付嘅，即係起好之後，用香港嘅標準，香港嘅建築團隊起好之後呢，係交俾醫院管理局去營運嘅。但係呢個深圳河套嘅應急醫院呢，就係當時一直都係話係由內地嚟到幫我哋興建同埋營運。咁所以呢，就目前呢，就係未去到呢個營運，雖然部分呢已經係交付咗，但係未去到呢個營運。我都冇機會去過，所以我唔係好知道究竟即係咩人咩拒絕嚇。咁但係事實上特區政府嘅團隊呢，包括發展局、包括食物及衛生局，以至醫管局呢，都一直係喺個對接嗰個會議嗰度嘅，因為我哋都要知道究竟嗰個興建啊或者裏邊嘅配置呢係點樣樣嚇。如果有醫管局嘅董事局成員要去，都要睇時間係咪方便啊嘛嚇。呢個唔係一個權利可以行入去嘅地方啊，尤其是呢整個落馬洲河套區呢係受到緊急法嘅規例係賦予佢可以凌駕咗香港嘅法律呢嚟到係加快嗰個建築同埋嗰個建設嘅工程嘅。就第二條題目都答咗㗎啦，就係咩時候用？有需要嘅時候呢就會用啦嚇，因為係一個疫情嘅期間，尤其是經過第5波疫情呢，我哋發覺能夠有多啲嘅備用嘅能力呢係需要嘅。呢個亦都係等於我哋香港喺出現第3波嘅時候呢，就中央援建咗一個臨時醫院，即係剛才講喺大嶼山嘅800病床。喺舊年2月交付嘅時候呢，其實個疫情都已經下降到得返好少。但係我哋都係擺咗喺度，亦都有醫管局嘅基本嘅員工咧喺度營運。但曾經有時候，我諗佢真係可能得幾十或者10個人病人喺度嘅啫嚇，因為都嗰陣時都冇本地個案，都係一啲輸入嘅個案。但係佢而家就發揮咗個好嘅作用啦。咁所以應急醫院咪就係愛嚟，即係如果仲有事情咧，就係應急。尤其是咧有啲誤會啊，曾經有一篇報道話，因為要建呢個應急醫院咧，就影響咗薛局長嗰個落馬洲河套區嘅深港創新科技園。呢個並不正確，因為嗰塊地好大嘅87公頃，而家用嚟應急醫院嗰部分咧喺東邊嚇，但係我哋首期嘅港深嘅科技創新園咧係喺西邊嚇，係近落馬洲嗰邊嘅，咁所以冇影響嘅。啲大樓就係起緊嘅，完全都係起緊嘅嚇，所以必須要作呢個澄清嚇。就跟住嗰個問題呢，就係如果個疫情再受控，啲個案就下跌，咁需要進入去社區隔離設施嘅感染人士呢，就越嚟越少。咁點樣處理呢啲社交距離社交嘅隔離設施呢？目前嚟講咧，屬於呢一類叫社區隔離設施，即係 community isolation facilities， 有幾大類嘅。第一類當然係中央援建呢喺6幅嘅土地上邊援建嘅，包括元朗嘅潭尾啊、青衣啊、諸如此類啦嚇。咁嗰度咧都係有5000幾個單位，2萬個病，有2萬個床嘅。呢個係一類。第二類咧就係當然係我哋自己嘅竹篙灣。同埋係鯉魚門公園嘅度假村啊。第3類咧就係早期我哋係租咗啲酒店嘅啊。第4類咧就係徵用咗2條屋邨、3座大樓，同埋徵用咗2個過渡性房屋嘅項目啊。咁一共咧有4類啊。咁竹篙灣大家知道啦，我哋為咗幫助今年會考嘅中六生呢，我哋大致上將整個竹篙灣而家騰空呢，就嚟到配合佢哋開考嘅時候，如果有感染咗嘅學生或者係屬於緊密接觸嘅應考嘅學生呢，就可以入去竹篙灣呢度作一個特別嘅市場啊。咁而家唔知道有幾多學生要用，但係我哋都會整個竹篙灣或者絕大部分嘅竹篙灣呢，就係我哋作呢個支持同學考試嘅地方啊。 咁第二方面咧，酒店我哋都陸陸續續褪緊一啲出嚟咧，就俾佢做翻一個檢疫酒店。因為喺4月1號之後咧，亦都係多咗香港居民，因為我哋解除咗個禁飛令咧，可以從呢啲海外國家翻嚟啦。咁所以就變翻新咧，做一個隔離嘅酒店啊。咁亦都有一啲咧就改咗用途咧，就係成為咗醫院管理局員工同埋安老院舍員工嘅閉環酒店啊，即係佢哋唔想翻到屋企咧就感染咗屋企人咧，咁所以放工之後咧都係住咗喺我哋提供嘅酒店嗰度嘅啊。好啦，咁最後一類咧就係呢兩條屋邨嘅3座樓同埋2個過渡性房屋嘅項目，嗰度都成6000個單位嘅。咁我同房屋局局長咧都係正喺度商量。就隨住個疫情嘅漸趨穩定啦，尤其是睇完呢個4月8號、9號、10號做每天嘅快速抗原測試，如果並冇衍生咗大量嘅確診人士需要隔離咧，其實我哋會優先將呢啲公屋或者係過渡性房屋嘅資源咧係交回俾一啲居民。因為呢啲都係目前係輪候咗公屋一段好長時間啦，同埋居住環境係比較惡劣嘅居民，亦都係需要特區政府係關心嘅。咁所以我哋唔會係長時間咁佔用呢啲房屋嘅資源。咁希望喺下個禮拜初睇完呢個4月8號、9號、10號嗰個對於呢啲社區隔離設施嘅影響之後呢，我哋就可以決定咩時候呢，就盡早可以歸還翻呢啲房屋單位咧，俾已經配咗單位或者即將會配入住呢啲單位嘅市民咧，係可以盡早上樓。情況係咁樣樣。
好，下位記者。係啦，呢位唔該。
係你好，有線電視嘅，咁有4條問題想問。咁第一個就係候選人資格審查會嘅官守成員，而家得返2個。咁之前就話會任命多個嘅主要，即係多一個主要官員。咁幾時會任命呢？同埋即係特首而家嗰個選舉嘅提名期已經開始咗1個禮拜。咁李家超亦都宣布咗會參選。咁而家資審會嗰個主席嘅職位而家都懸空緊嘅時候，會唔會嚟唔切去確認一啲候選人嘅資格呢？咁之後即係頂替政務司司長嘅官員會唔會兼任埋主席呢個職位？咁第二條就係啱啱個記者問到，就係全民快速測試嗰個反應係點樣？想問政府係用啲咩準則去評估呢個措施嘅效度？有冇話即係預計會有幾多個人喺呢3日裡面會透過快速測試平台呈報陽性個案？咁有冇話多咗幾多個個案先叫做有效呢？咁另外第3條問題就係網上面而家出現好多即係消費券套現嘅一啲嘅 post 啊，咁我哋亦都發現有啲咁樣嘅情況，想問當局會唔會打擊又或者巡查呢啲消費券套現嘅呢類嘅個案咁樣？咁第4就係有啲報章就報道衛生署更改咗院舍外展醫生嘅指引，如果醫生判斷對即係個長者即係打針接種疫苗有一個最佳嘅利益，就唔需要確認佢哋有冇監護人就可以幫佢哋打針。想問翻係咪即係院舍其實有機會喺完全唔通知院友屋企人嘅情況之下就可以幫佢哋打針？如果打咗之後有啲嚴重嘅副作用嘅話，其實係追究翻個醫生啊，定係政府呢？唔該。
4個問題嚇，涉及都係好唔同嘅範疇。第一咧就係資格審查委員會，我早前都講咗㗎啦。隨住李家超辭任政務司司長，同埋早前徐英偉亦都係辭任民政事務局局長咧。而家呢個候選人資格審查委員會咧就剩翻2位官方嘅成員嚇，亦都冇主席嚇。咁所以我係會再次委任嘅嚇。咁委任嘅人選呢，都係一定係嚟自按住基本法第48條第5款係得到中央人民政府任命嘅主要官員嚇。咁但係今日咧就未能夠公佈我相信下禮拜咧就會公佈係委任咗邊一位嘅官員呢作為呢個資格審查委員會嘅主席，因為主席係唔需要一定係政務司司長嘅嚇，法律亦都冇咁嘅要求。 提名期一直到4月16日，而係香港選舉法例呢，我哋係需要喺23日呢，4月23日呢就有核准咗嘅候選人啦。我係完全有信心呢，資格審查委員會會喺呢啲日子之前呢係成立到開會嚟到去確認參選人嘅候選資格。第二個問題呢，就係反映就呢個4月8號、9號、10號希望全港市民呢自願做呢個快速抗原檢測嘅目的好清楚㗎啦。一方面呢，就係讓政府更加好掌握而家社會嘅整體嘅感染情況啦。另一方面呢，就係等到一啲感染咗但冇病徵嘅市民呢，可以盡早知道自己係一個感染者，從而係注重個人嘅衛生，唔好傳播呢個病毒，亦都俾政府呢能夠為佢提供適切嘅家居支援啊、隔離啊或者係治療嘅服務啦。我當然希望越多人參加越好啦，但係由於佢係自願性，而且係絕大部分係陰性嘅結果，亦都唔需要呈報呢，所以根本係冇辦法知道究竟有幾多人做嚇。我哋亦都唔會特別去用某一種嘅方法去尋求呢個數字嚇。我知道有啲傳媒就喺街問啦嚇，或者係打電話問啦嚇，或者喺某一啲嘅群組去問啦嚇。咁但係都唔係一個好科學化嘅做法啦嚇。事實上問完亦都係唔係好有作用嘅。我哋其實就係要多啲人做咁解啫。多啲人做嘅好處咪令到我頭先講嗰個掌握感染情況，即係嗰個幅相啊。如果係一幅即影即有相，一幅相係會靚好多，就會完整好多嚇。亦都等更加多感染咗但係冇病徵嘅人呢，可以更加早咧被識別到出嚟啊。咁但係我掌握嘅數字呢，就係4月8號進行咗呢個即日嚇，但因為佢有24小時呈報啊嘛，咁所以呢個未必已經係今日下晝4點半公佈，因為快速抗原測試成功呈報嘅陽性個案未必係完全反映喺4月8日做咗快速抗原測試嘅市民而呈陽性嘅整體嘅結果嘅嚇。因為佢有24小時咧嚟到去呈報，但係只要佢俾我哋一直見到個下降趨勢咧，唔係喎，係上升，咁即係話透過呢個嘅行動咧，係多咗人俾我哋識別咗出嚟，咁於是對我頭先講嘅兩個嘅作用咧，都係會有一個積極嘅作用啊。但當然個作用越大，就係要靠越多人咧嚟到去參加啦。第三個問題咧，就算我真係冇辦法好有權威咁回答啦。究竟攞咗呢個消費券喺網上進行某一種嘅形式嘅交易或者套現是否違法？我請你向財政司司長辦公室咧嚟到查詢。第四嗰個工作咧，係喺我哋核心小組詳細傾嘅，因為院舍嘅接種嘅長者個比率咧就一直都唔係好高。但係第5波疫情正傷害到最多嘅呢，就係院舍嘅長者超過一半嘅離世嘅長者呢，都係嚟自安老院舍。咁所以我哋儘管由舊年開始已經不斷呼籲安排催促，但係都係唔係好成功咁提升到院舍長者嘅接種率，從而可以減低呢一次嘅傷害。咁但係都要做都唔應該放棄，因為第6波會嚟，第7波會嚟，咁所以一定係爭取爭分奪秒咁咧，希望能夠喺院舍嗰度多為長者嚟到接種。照聶德權局長昨天講咧，而家喺院舍裏邊應該60%係接種咗第1劑。我哋喺呢個月咧，亦都會再次係外展隊咧係出動2次去呢啲院舍探訪。個目的咧就係為嗰啲可以接種第2劑嘅長者咧同佢接種，為嗰啲早前因為確診咗而未能夠接種嘅咧，過咗嗰個一定嘅時間嘅距離咧又可以接種嚇，咁做呢個工作。但係你都聽到啦，喺有一個好少嘅百分比，我希望而家係細過5%啦，就係因為佢嘅家人反對，佢嘅家人係書面反對為佢嘅院舍嘅長者咧係接種。咁但係我哋喺核心小組研究咗咧，呢個所謂家人反對同一個醫生專業去判斷 對佢嘅病人嘅最佳利益應該有一個平衡嘅睇法嚇。咁所以因為醫生係救急扶危噶嘛，醫生喺佢哋嗰個係咪都有個誓言嘅説法咧，都係要 act in the best interest of the patient。咁所以佢去睇咗一個長者院舍院舍嘅長者，佢覺得為佢打針係冇醫療嘅原因係唔得嘅。咁所以一定係要同佢打針，就令到佢呢，如果係日後感染呢，都唔會有重症，都唔會有死亡。呢個係醫生我認為佢哋嘅專業必須做嘅事嚇。咁所以如果呢個長者唔係有一個真係法律上嘅監護人，係書面反對，咁我哋就覺得醫生嘅判斷應該係更加被重視，從而為呢個長者打針嚇。呢個唔係改變咗個政策，係釐清咗一啲嘅考慮，等到所有醫生即係有所遵從，就唔需要個別醫生呢到時話我係咁樣做，原來另一個醫生嘅判斷唔係咁，政府你亦都冇乜睇法，咁就對啲醫生唔係好公道啦嚇。咁所以就我哋呢個衛生署俾外展醫生嘅指引呢，都係咁樣討論出嚟嘅嚇。我覺得即係每日醫生醫病人，佢都係會有一啲嘅風險㗎啦。即係如果病人喺個診治之下出現咗咩情況嚇，咁所以我覺得唔需要擔心。尤其是佢哋今次參與呢，係一個政府嘅疫苗接種計劃。如果你留意呢，我哋喺第599章應該係為醫生都作咗一個全面嘅保障㗎啦嚇，因為呢啲疫苗都係我哋提供，整個計劃都係一個政府嘅計劃。但係我唔覺得我哋應該重點講一個所謂即係邊個負責，即係一個 liability issue。我哋應該講嘅呢係一個保護長者嘅議題。希望更加多嘅家人、市民、院舍嘅營運者都係歡迎我哋呢啲外展嘅醫療隊伍去到佢嘅院舍呢，為可以打針嘅老人家打針。
好啦，咁我哋今日記者會都差唔多時間啦，咁我哋今日就到此為止。咁有請嚟聯合採訪隊嘅同事度嚟準備啦。咁行政長官同埋局長呢會喺兩件嘅產品前面影一張相嘅。